Good afternoon. Wow. I've sensed someone, I don't know whether I'm more overwhelmed with why we're here today or that I've seen so many people I haven't seen for so many years. But here we are. Karen, I wish you could see how many people are here. Maybe you will in a little bit. My name is Dave Parker. I'm the founding pastor at Eastside Christian Fellowship, now called Trellis Church, where Tom and Karen have been attending for years, and I'm honored to be here with you. And I do want to make one thing very clear. I don't know of a memorial service that I've ever officiated that I wasn't in a suit. But there's one guy who could get me to do that. That would be Tom Osborn. Not the flip-flops, but I got the shorts and the Hawaiian shirt. So, and I was thinking about this morning, the last time I saw Tom was at our oldest member, Bill Fletcher, passed not long ago. We did his memorial service, and it was like a week before Tom passed. And he came to Tom. And if there's one guy who gave Tom a hard time about wearing flip-flops and shorts when he preached, it was Bill Fletcher. And at 96 years old, he had a right to do that, right? But Tom had enough respect to show up that man's in his pants and his shirt, and I said, good for you, Tom. So today, Tom, this is for you. On behalf of Karen and the entire Osborn family, thank you for being here today to honor and celebrate and remember our brother and our friend, our dad, our granddad, husband. Proverbs 4:23, I think, gives us a profound truth that sets the stage for us today. Above all else, it says, guard your heart, for it is the wellspring of life. In a physical sense, our hearts are both vital and vulnerable. Our physical life depends on the heart pumping blood every second of every day. But when the Bible talks about the heart, it refers to the deepest core of who we are. It is the axis around which our lives spin. It's the wellspring from which every thought and word and action flows. On June 20th of this year, Tom's physical heart stopped. But the overflow of his heart, the wellspring of who he was, has not stopped, and it will not stop. It will not stop as long as we continue to tell his story, and as long as the ripple effects of his almost 69 years on this earth continue, and as long as the Christ-like influence that he had on each of us is lived out in our own lives. Tom was above all else a man who loved Jesus with every fiber of his being. His faith was not about putting on a Sunday coat. It was the foundation of his entire life. In September 1986, Tom married the love of his life, Karen. Together for 40 years, they built a home centered on faith and laughter and relentless devotion to family. Tom was fiercely proud as a father to James and Kelly and Trey and Sarah. He was right there in the middle of everything, coaching your sports and camping and participating in Boy Scouts and cheering on each of you and your unique passions. And later, he welcomed his daughter-in-law, Melissa, and son-in-law, Stephen, into the family and delighted in becoming grandpa to 5 precious grandchildren, telling them stories and telling stories about them to anyone who would listen. Tom never met a stranger. Now, that's going to be a surprise to most of you here, but Tom never met a stranger. He had a gift of conversation. That, too, will not be a surprise to most of you. And he made everyone feel like a lifelong friend in minutes. And Tom's heart overflowed into service. He didn't just talk about faith. He was what he called Jesus with skin on. That's one of the many Tomisms that I call them. Tom said a lot. He faithfully served for many years as a chaplain for the Redmond police and fire departments. He walked alongside people through the heavy battles and celebrate recovery through the years. He poured his heart and soul into Johnny and Friends and Young Life Capernaum, who are camps ministering to children and families affected by disabilities, especially in these latter decade of his life. He met with the same group of men on Friday morning, most of you are here today, for well over a decade. His pastoral journey took him from youth pastor at Bellingham Alliance to Woodinville Alliance, and then to senior pastor at Union Hill Church, and eventually to associate and teaching pastor at Trellis Church right here in Kirkland. But as you will hear today, that is not where his pastoral heart stopped. It continued, and today we get to trace that overflow of Tom's heart through the voices of many people. We'll hear about the heart of a father from several members of his family. We'll hear about the heart of a friend from a dear friend. We'll hear about the heart of a mentor from someone who he mentored through the years. And then I'll return later as we conclude to share about his heart as a pastor, closing with one of Tom's favorite stories in the Bible, the thief on the cross. So today, I want to give you permission to listen and to learn and to laugh and to cry. And remember the good things that Tom accomplished, and then let's collectively go and do likewise. Take the grace, the conversation, and the servant's heart that Tom enjoyed and pass it on to somebody else. I have no doubt that when Tom stepped across into eternity, he heard the words he lived his life to hear. Well done, good and faithful servant. James, come up and kick us off.
When I was little, my dad used to tuck me into bed every night. I don't know how you guys tuck your own kids into bed, but the routine was pretty simple. It was he would tuck me in, he would pray for me, and then he would give me a kiss. And I remember one day I was little, I don't know how old, but I turned to him and I said, "Dad, you know, someday I'm going to be a professional baseball player, and they're going to put me on TV. And when I'm on TV, you can't kiss me in front of everybody." And he looked at me and he said, "James, I love you, but that's the stupidest thing you've ever said." Now, I don't actually remember that story. It could be true, it could not be true, but he told that story so many times. But that's my dad. My dad told stories. He was a storyteller. He had a lot of stories, he had a lot of opinions, and he had a lot of things to say, just in general. So in honor of my dad, I wrote up a little sermonette today and just like him, I'm going to give it a title, because you have to have a title on a sermon. So I'm going to call it The Legacy of a Father, What He Told Me and What He Showed Me. My dad told me everything about sports. He coached high school football as an assistant coach. He was a golf coach at Woodinville High School. He coached my little league teams, my basketball teams. He showed me how to compete. He took me to some of the best sporting events of my entire life, whether it's at Husky Stadium, at Heck Ed, the Kingdome, Safeco Field. The times when I got to go out with it was just me and my dad were some of the times that I look forward to the most in my life growing up. If it weren't for my dad, I would have never started the career that I started in sports radio. I wouldn't have the trajectory I'm on in my life, any of it, and I'm thankful for it. My dad told me that your relationship with God is your first priority, but your family is always the next. What he showed me was far more powerful than that. He used to always say things like, other people can do whatever they want, but they don't get to be an Osborn. I don't think there's anything that would be more infuriating as a cop-out answer when you're a teenager just wants to go out at night and your dad says, well, they don't get to be an Osborn, you get to be home at 8 o'clock. But at the same time, he believed that, and he made me believe that. My dad had this whistle that he would use when we were kids, this like 2-finger whistle, and he would, whenever he wanted us, for any reason, good or bad, he would blow this whistle, and it would stop everyone in their tracks. And I remember being like 11 years old, and I'm like, next year I get to be in the youth group with all the teenagers hanging out, and I'd be playing with all these older kids, like trying to show off that I belonged. And then my dad would just get this piercing whistle across the field, and everybody stops, and I do this perp walk back to my dad across a field for 150 yards, because I've tried, anyways, that kind of stuff was that was his thing. I'm grinding my teeth just thinking about it. But no matter how much I hated those little dad things that he did, or the matching Bob the Tomato VeggieTale t-shirts that he made us wear on family road trips, I always knew that he had those things in place because he was proud of his family. He wanted us to understand how special our family was and how much of a blessing our lives were. Even if we didn't have the best stuff or take the best trips or wear the best clothes, he showed me that a loving family that raises up good men and women doesn't need those things. It's a lesson I'll never forget. He said no bigger example of how much family matters than when we adopted my little brother and sister. When they entered our house as infants, God knows they were never going to leave there again as anything other than Tom's children, my siblings, the Osborns, the family that he would brag about to everyone, everywhere. My dad told me to build relationships. He showed me that every single time you meet someone is an opportunity to build connection. I think about the times that we get stuck in the church parking lot because he was trying to tell the visitor who came from the East Coast about he knew where the best sandwich place was in North Carolina. Regardless of the fact he hadn't been there in 27 years. There's no way that place existed anymore. But he was like that. He just wanted to connect, like Dave was saying. Relationships to my dad weren't handshakes. They weren't just hellos. He brought people into his life, and he dove into their lives head first. When we were young, he'd be mentoring guys from his youth group, holding Bible studies downstairs. I can remember trying to wake up early so I could make it down before the last old-fashioned was gone that he had brought, because he loved donuts. He would find people that had hard times in their life, and instead of just giving them a prayer and a hug, he'd bring them in, and they'd live with us for months. Growing up, I didn't realize that's not what everybody did, but that's what my dad did. That's what my family did. One of the most rewarding things about the last month here since he's passed has been hearing old stories about my dad. I've been finding emails that he had bookmarked from people who had written him to tell them about the impact that he'd made in their lives. Actually, a few months before he passed, I met somebody who knew him over 30 years ago when he was a youth pastor in Woodinville, and she had told me a story about how her daughter was going through some stuff, and she was not letting anybody into her life. But my dad, he wasn't going to take that, and so he pursued her, and he found a way to get through to her, and this lady, 30-some years later, with tears in her eyes, holding my shoulder, was like, if it weren't for your dad, I don't know where my daughter would be. And that kind of power, that lesson, that stuck with me. I couldn't wait to get home and tell him that story so I could see the emotion well up in his eyes. That was the best. Emotions. That's the next thing that he told me about. He told me to be tough, just like all dads tell their sons. But what he showed me was a life marked by authenticity. I didn't have to guess what he was feeling because he let me know about it. I never wanted to see him mad because the color of red that his already red face would turn was the stuff that my 5-year-old nightmares were made of. It was when the Huskies scored a touchdown or the Mariners hit a homer in a big moment. It's not something that happens often. He would celebrate so loud the dog would run out of the room. When he laughed, you couldn't help but laugh even harder. And then the tears. Those of you who spent time with him know that my dad was a crier. He loved to cry. He would sit there every Sunday after church, and he'd nap through the final round of the golf tournament. He'd wake up to watch the final holes, and then let tears stream down his face as he choked back happy sobs, watching literally anybody win. Didn't matter who it was. Whoever won, he's crying. And seeing the wife come up and give him a hug, just tears and choking up, but that's who he was. He would DVR Extreme Makeover Home Edition. I don't know if you know this. And he would just do it, I think, before the ending, where they would bring out the bus, and then he would wait for that moment where Ty would yell, "Move that bus!" And these families would just cry, and he's sobbing every day. He has a whole library of Extreme Makeover Home Edition he's just crying to. My dad once told me that I didn't have to always say what was on my mind. He did show me that one. We missed one there. My dad told me that he loved me, but he didn't need to. He showed me in every way possible. It was it's in the way he smiled at me. It's in the way that he came over to help me on my house whenever I needed it. It was in the way that he made sure he kept my favorite drink stocked in his house, just in case I showed up. It was in the way that he hugged me every time we said hello and goodbye. Hearing him say that he was proud of me, that he loved me, there's nothing that compares to that feeling. Ultimately, my dad showed me something that he didn't get to experience a lot when he was growing up. His father passed away when he was 11, and he wanted to be the best father he could imagine after losing his too soon. And I'm 38, and I feel like I lost mine too soon, but that's how good of a father my dad was to me. He loved me. He loved my mom. He loved my sisters and my brother. He loved my wife, my kids, his son-in-law, his Hawaiian grandchildren. He loved his sister, his brother, his friends. He loved his coworkers, the people who attended his church. He loved the guy working the counter at Tully's in 1997. He loved the lady who worked at the front desk at the chiropractor's office. He loved, no matter what, because he knew what it felt like when you felt like you couldn't be loved. I recently found an essay that he wrote when he was in grad school about coming to terms with his own father's passing. And in it, he writes about the pain and the anger that he held on to for close to a decade. And then he writes about what it felt like to understand God's love, a father's love. He understood that God's love was powerful. It was capable of overcoming all the pain he'd experienced, all the choices that he made to hurt himself and those around him, all the trouble and the heartache he would feel or cause the rest of his days. He knew that love. He received that love. And he gave that love to anyone else who was willing to take it. So I'm not going to wrap this up by telling you anything else about my dad. I'm going to show you who he was by the way that I live my life. So, I love you, Dad. I'm going to welcome my brother Trey.
My dad was the kind of dad who never left my side. It started from the beginning when he chose me to be his son. Being adopted felt like God's gift to him. As I grew up, there were a number of things that my dad and I did together that shaped who I am today. When I was little, we started doing scouts together. He taught me how to push past my fears, like camping and campfires. He continued to help me conquer my fears. One of the biggest fears was being police and fire sirens. When I was little, my dad organized a birthday surprise for me by inviting the fire department to come to my birthday party. From then on, I was hooked. If you didn't know, my dad was a chaplain for the city of Redmond. Him being a chaplain helped me grow in my appreciation for first responders. Something that we shared and has continued to be important to me today. I am thankful to my dad for that. One of my favorite memories was going to the pancake breakfast and at the fire station with him. I still have connections in the police and fire departments today because of him. Another favorite memory was doing the polar bear plunge with the police department to raise money for Special Olympics. My dad got me started in Special Olympics. He cheered me on, supported me in every step of the way. It meant a lot to me to have him support me as I played sports. Loving sports is something that we always had in common. It started when I was little and we watched Seattle Mariners games together. We then went to a few Husky football games together. I always liked to talk about sports with my dad. That was something that I miss doing. I will continue to cheer on Seattle sports like my dad would. I am so thankful for all the things that my dad and I did together. Many of those things have helped me shape who I am today. The most important things my dad and I shared was being a Christian. He taught me to live like Romans 12:2. Do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewal of your mind, that by testing you may discern what is the will of God, what is good and acceptable and perfect. That was my dad's life verse, and I want to continue to live my life through this verse. I know that God used my dad to help me become who I am today. I love you, Dad. Thank you.
I have heard many times over the past few weeks since my dad passed about how much my dad loved to talk about his kids and how proud he was of all of us. Now it's my turn to talk about all the things that I love about my dad and things we had in common. I get both my natural ease in talking to people and my loudness from my father. My dad was a talker, a natural conversationalist. I'm pretty sure everyone in this room knew how great of a talker he was. People always knew that if Tom was preaching on a Sunday, the service would be going long. And he had a voice that filled up spaces. Both of those traits I see in myself and in my job as a teacher, which I know my dad was very proud of. As you can probably imagine, it has been really quiet this past month. Spaces have felt empty in his absence, and all the background noise that he brought with him is gone. We miss all that noise. We are both pretty opinionated people and don't always keep those opinions to ourselves. My dad could be a bit of a particular person. He liked things the way that they were, liked them done a certain way, and he would tell you about it. The rest of my family always said that I was the only one who could challenge some of those opinions. I think stubborn just respects stubborn, I guess. I will definitely miss that banter. My dad and I shared an ability to remember names and faces. My dad made connections and friendships everywhere he went. Truly, he would go fishing or golfing and come home talking about who he met from wherever they lived and some connection that he had made to someone that he knew. When he first passed, we all talked about how we didn't know how to make sure that everyone knew because his social circle was so large. I've always thought of my ability to remember names and faces as my little superpower, but it is something that I now see that I shared with my dad. He was a very big relationship guy, very extroverted and always connecting people around him. That is something that I will miss. My dad was also a bit of a sappy guy. I'm not much of a crier, but I do share the way that my dad would tear up at an emotional moment. Baby dedications, baptisms, weddings, sentimental speeches. We always chuckled at how he would cry, but totally try to hide it at reveal shows on home renovations, backstories on any HGTV show, performances on America's Got Talent, especially The Golden Buzzer, just to name a few. I won't be able to see something cheesy or sentimental and not think about how my dad would be choking up at that moment. Something else that I will miss about my dad, and that we've laughed about in these past few weeks, is how my dad would always be concerned about what I could eat at any gathering or restaurant that we went to. I have been gluten-free, dairy-free since 2013, and he would still ask, "Is there anything that you can eat here?" when we went to a party or out to eat. Or if I brought something that I made, he would say, "This tastes really good for being gluten-free, dairy-free. Or if you didn't tell me that this was gluten-free, dairy-free, I would never know. It was such a predictable routine whenever we went anywhere, and I think we'll all miss that. There are many more things that I will miss about my dad, but these are a few that I will cherish and carry through each day of life moving forward. He was a great man. He loved being a dad, and we loved him as our dad. It's amazing how empty things feel without him. It feels like we will never stop missing him. I love you, Dad. Thank you for everything you taught us, gave us, and sacrificed for us. You are the best.
I didn't realize until I sat down that I only had 2 minutes, so I'm going to cut a lot of this out. But I'm Larry Christensen. I became Tom's stepbrother in July of 1971. And for many years after that, Tom and I talked a lot about being the patriarchs of our separate families. Tom having a younger sister, Nancy, younger brother, Mike, and me having 3 younger sisters, Kathy, Karen, Linda, and a younger brother, Ron. In 1997, I married my wife, Jolene, and Tom officiated it. I bring that up because 25 years later, when we took a Hawaiian cruise, we stopped in Kona and spent some time with Sarah and their first child, Nora. And I was pleased to be able to call Tom and tell him about that. And he, at that time, told me, he says, "You're the first relatives to see the baby." So I went. That was one for me. I'm going to skip all the golf stories and sports stories, cross those out. I always remember Tom as being very spirited, having a hearty laugh, always have an opinion to share, and apparently knowing everything about everything. I never knew how he knew all that stuff, but I accept it. So the melding of our two families, we had big get-togethers, and during those get-togethers, whether it was a barbecue at Tom and Karen's house, everybody'd be out there, and Tom connected with everybody there. He always had time to offer his help physically or emotionally to anybody that needed it. Okay, that was skip. Let's see here. I do find it, so I spent the last few weeks going through the our family albums, and I saw a lot of pictures of Tom, and it occurred to me that it's a little ironic that we're standing up here speaking to all of you with a microphone in our hand. Because I have many pictures of Tom with a microphone in his hand, whether it was a family get-together or a church choir or what have you. But I felt that Tom addressing people with a microphone was his comfort zone and something that he was really good at. And I just want to finish by saying, Karen, where'd you go? He will not only be missed by the Osborn family, I know, but the Christensen family also.
So I'm the sister, and believe it or not, I'm older than Tom. He had this belief that the firstborn should be a boy, and consequently, Tom and I fought over that for most of our lives. My brothers and I grew up in Lake Ridge on a street that was filled with kids, and we would we held seafair races on our bikes with wooden hydroplanes tied behind them. We had all sorts of games that we played, and we also managed to get into significant scrapes over time. But it was always just that kind of fun, outgoing play that we had growing up that I think really contributed to the fact that Tom could find something to play wherever he went. He didn't have to know the person. He just showed up, and he was always and is, in my head and heart, still very present. Yes, Osborn's cry. Tom was born, as one friend described, an old soul that he had to grow into. He grew into the person that he was and is, and while growing up with him, may not have totally realized this, but boy, as an adult, and having him as my brother and my friend was a true blessing. So now, we'll go on without him. And I may still argue over the oldest child bit. But I am forever grateful that I had Tom, well, Mike and I had Tom in our lives.
All right, for anybody that doesn't know me, I'm Tom's favorite brother. I'm his only brother, but I am his favorite brother. And I came in the shirt, no flip-flops. I couldn't borrow his, my feet are bigger. His heart was bigger, my feet are bigger. It's interesting because we weren't super close when we grew up. We fought a lot. I fought with Nancy. We were like three incredibly different people. And I lived in a world of, if you don't know it, I own a business down at Pike Place Market. I've been there for over 53 years. Anyways, I lived in that world. Tom lived in his. Nancy lived in hers. We weren't super close. Well, about 17 years ago, I bought the business. And I sold it, and I didn't get to learn anything about it because the person that sold me was terminal, and I didn't get to learn anything about the business. So I was winging it. And I remember I was out visiting Mom one day, and she said, hey, why don't you hire your brother? I didn't even really know what he was doing. And then she started talking to me about it, and I realized it wasn't a suggestion. So I said, okay, why don't I hire Tom? Okay. Like I said, we weren't super close. Okay. So this is interesting because, I hired him. I let him pick his wage. Oh, God, he's got a high opinion of himself, but that's okay. Anyways, he came into the market. He was coming from a world of black and white and stepped into a world of all gray. And boy, I'll tell you, he wasn't an accountant. He didn't know anything about produce. He did know how to talk, okay? And basically, it's just sales, and he did a great job with that. Oh, my God. But I had to tell him, Tom, you need to wait on more than 2 customers in a 10-hour shift. Okay. So, we still battled, but we worked our way through it. I think once he figured out to stop trying to shove the square peg into the round hole, I think it figured it out. I think he got the gray. And I think that fulfilled him. I think that finished off. Because I think he came from a spot at the time in his life where he might have been struggling a little bit. Not any less of the person he was, but hadn't reached where he wanted to be. And I think embracing the grays, and oh boy, there was gray down at the market in a world that he was not used to, yet one that he adapted to and thrived in. I can't tell you all the things that he did for us, the staff, everything. I will. Oh, can you hand me those 3 things out of there? I do want to tell you what he did for me. Those 3, these are important. So, Tom was my gatekeeper. Okay, so he kept all the minutia away from me. All he wanted me to do was to run the business. He knows how much joy I had in it, how much fun it was for the people that were with me when I ran it. So he kept all the crap away from me. And he wanted my life to be perfect. Okay, this is an example. This is a hand truck handle. Okay, I have probably 25 of them at the stand because all different, because he wanted the perfect hand truck handle for my hand. I'm not kidding you. I don't know where he got it in his mind that I even cared, because most of them would slip off when you're pulling a stack of cherries. You know, and I'm like, oh my God, Tom, please quit. Okay. Something closer to my heart. The water bucket top, okay? So that is important down there. And we probably have 15 different water buckets under the stairs, okay? Only one of them works, okay? But he found the tops for that one. I've got a lifetime supply. Okay, this one's the most important. I know you guys all know what this is, okay? Thank you. All right. Did he get them for you too? Okay. This is the little ball on your paper towel dispenser. Okay, it kept coming off. If anybody needs them, I just counted. I had 48 of them down at the shop. Okay, I've used 2. Okay, so if anybody needs them, I once wrapped duct tape around it, and it was a nice little ball, permanent, right? Oh my God, he threw a fit. He came in, but don't you know where these are? My God, who did that? And I'm like, I did, Tom. Okay, so yeah, and that's who he was to me. That's what he did. He handled all the staff requests. They didn't come to me. I said, call Tom. Call Tom. They needed rent statements. They needed shirts and clothes or whatever we supplied. I don't know. I said, just call Tom. Because it wasn't, his job was to get all the crap out of my life. And boy, let me tell you, the last 6 weeks, James and I have seen the crap, okay? I get up, I have an extra hour every day trying to go through the stuff. I was up at 1:30 this morning trying to dissect my way through the emails. I had no idea. I did, but like Tom was the hardest working guy in the world for the stand, even though it probably only took 2 hours a day. So, but now it took a lot. Okay, I know, I don't care if the lights are going out or not. But I will say one thing. He was put on this earth to impact people's lives. And I can say after all these years, Tom is really my favorite brother. He really is. Thank you.
I'm Jude Osborn, and Tom Osborn was my grandpa. He was always so kind and loving, and he was just really funny and generous. He liked golfing and fishing. I remember he took golfing trips and fishing trips, and I don't know if he took a golfing fishing trips, but I definitely do know that he didn't golf for fish. I loved that he was really, really kind to me, and he was nice, and he let me do just a bunch of things with him. I remember when he took me mini golfing, and since golfing is his favorite hobby, and he got last place on mini golfing. That was really funny. I miss every time that I go to Grandma's house. I think it's not the same without Grandpa. My name is Luke Osborn, and Tom Osborn was my grandpa. So, Grandpa, whenever we went over to their house, we would always say hi and give them hugs. And he loved fishing and golfing and baseball. I remember every time we watched the Mariners play, he would always yell at them because they played so bad. I love going on fishing trips with him and watching baseball with him and playing mini golf. I'm gonna definitely miss most going fishing with him because I'm going fishing this Thursday and it'll be sad without him.
My name is Seth Osborn, and I like my grandpa because he is kind, he is nice, he is playful. He likes bringing us on fishing trips and likes to bring us to baseball games. Grandpa Day was where mostly me and Grandpa get to go. Sometimes my brothers get to come to and spend time with my grandpa. I would play games with him, and I would hug him when I came in. I think I did most is getting out games and playing with him. He was not good. I always beat my grandpa at games.
What would you say to Grandpa if you could see him one more time? What would you say to Grandpa?
I would say, I'll miss you when you're in heaven, and I'll hug you when I go to heaven.
I lost the file on my Kindle, so back up. Apparently, I'm in Osborn today because I'm going to cry. Tom was a father, a mentor, a friend, and a pastor. As I thought about it, I came to the conclusion that Tom was all of those things and more, but those roles were all in one Tom-shaped package and not easily separated. He oftentimes would find a way to mix all of them together at the same time, and it was almost always projected through a God-centered lens. So I'd like to share some memories, if I could, to illustrate Tom as a friend. So I have a memory about fixing a car in Tom and Karen's driveway. I think that it was James' car. We were changing the cylinder head on the car just to get it to go down the road for a few more years. And while we worked, Tom and I were just talking about whatever. It just, wide-ranging conversation. After we finished, though, I realized that Tom had been mentoring me as we worked, while at the same time, he modeled being a father to his son. Amazing. And sneaky. A few years ago, I was having difficulty with moles in my yard. The little critters were wreaking havoc on my yard, and my dog was no help whatsoever. He was supposed to be a mouser. It's a rodent. Get rid of it. No, not my dog. So Tom took me aside and he explained, without even batting an eye, his process for ridding the scourge of moles from his own yard over the years. He explained where to place the traps, and that success was dependent on not touching the traps physically with your ungloved hand. He further explained that moles don't see well, but their sense of smell is pretty good, and the oils from your skin tended to drive them away from the traps. Additionally, if you remove the dad from the picture, the dad mole, the others go away. After explaining all that he had learned from his own experience to become a master mole hunter, he immediately went and grabbed his personal mole traps and some surgical gloves so that I too could become a master mole hunter. This is an example of Tom having the heart of a friend. He cared even about the mundane. I still have the traps and gloves that he gave to me. Karen, if you want them back, I'll bring them to you. So, one more memory that I have. Over the years, my wife and I had gone on several vacation cruises with Tom and Karen. Our most recent cruise was just a few months ago. I think maybe only 3 weeks after our vacation was when Tom passed. During the trip, we went to several cities, Marseille, Capri, Florence, and all big cities. And I recall on multiple occasions, while we were seeing the sights, we would stop and get something to eat. And there would often be a time during the meal that the server would ask if we needed anything. Tom would inevitably respond with some comment about how good the meal was. "That's fantastic," he would say. And then he would proceed to tell the server that we were from Seattle and that we were celebrating our respective 40th anniversaries. Most of the time, the expression on the face of the server would be priceless. Kind of a mixture of happy, congratulatory, and why do I need to know this? Looking back on it, Tom was telling the world, one person at a time, that he was proud, not prideful, but proud to be Karen's husband, the father to his kids and grandfather to his grandkids. He felt blessed by God to see what God had given him. Those are examples of how Tom was a friend because he shared what he had and what he was given. No reservation, no hesitance, no pretense. It was just friendship.
Would you join us and stand as we sing together?
Great is thy faithfulness, O God, my Father. There is no shadow of turning with thee. Thou changest not, thy compassions, they fail not. As thou hast been, thou forever will be.
Great is thy faithfulness.
Great is thy faithfulness. Great is thy faithfulness. Morning by morning, new mercies I see. All I have needed, thy hand hath provided. Great is thy faithfulness, Lord, unto me. Summer and winter and springtime and harvest, sun, moon, and stars in their courses above, join with all nature in manifold witness to thy great faithfulness, mercy, and love. Great is thy faithfulness, great is thy faithfulness. Morning by morning, new mercies I see. All I have needed, thy hand hath provided. Great is thy faithfulness, Lord, unto me. Pardon for sin and a peace that endureth, thine own dear presence to cheer and to guide, strength for today and bright hope for tomorrow. Blessings of mine with 10,000 beside. Great is thy faithfulness. Great is thy faithfulness. Morning by morning, new mercies I see. All I have needed, thy hand hath provided. Great is thy faithfulness, Lord, unto me. Great is thy faithfulness. Morning by morning, new mercies I see. All I have needed, thy hand hath provided. Great is thy faithfulness. Great is thy faithfulness. Great is thy faithfulness, Lord, unto me. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now am found. Was blind, but now I see. The Lord has promised good to me. His word my home secures. He will my shield and portion be, as long as life endures. Through many dangers, toils, and snares, I have already come. 'Tis grace that brought me safe thus far, and grace will lead me home. When we've been there 10,000 years, bright shining as the sun, we've no less days to sing was blind, but now I see. You may be seated.
My name is Joseph Rahm, and I'm a pastor at Trellis Church, where Tom and Karen have attended for approximately 20 years. I first met Tom sometime around 2006, 2007. Him and Karen began attending Eastside Christian Fellowship, now Trellis Church, around the same time my wife, Haley, and I did. And so after moving out of the area in 2011 for approximately 10 years, my family came back in early 2021, and I began my role as lead pastor at Trellis Church. And within the first few months, I approached Tom, who is already a good friend and mentor, but I approached him to ask him to directly mentor me. More specifically, I asked him to share wisdom, to speak into my life as a husband and a father. So as someone who understands the pressures and challenges of pastoring, I knew Tom would play a key role in my ability to succeed both as a pastor and as a family man. So over the past 5 years, we've had seasons when we've met monthly, seasons when we've met more frequently than that, and seasons when we've met less frequently, mostly due to the busyness of my schedule. But regardless of the frequency in which we met, I knew that Tom would always make himself available whenever I was available. So those of you who know Tom well will probably relate and find humor in the reality that most of my times with Tom were spent talking about many different things. Some planned, but most unplanned. You'll also probably relate and find humor in knowing that Tom was never short of words, stories, perspectives, opinions, advice. As others have said already today, Tom always had something to say, something important to share with others, and therefore something important to share with me. If I'm honest, it bothered me at times that Tom seemed to want to talk about everything except the things that I asked him about. But here's what I always knew about my time with Tom. I might not know what we would talk about, or I should say what he would talk about, but I always knew how Tom would approach our time together. With great care, love, and support, with intentionality around how he would challenge and encourage me, with understanding for my moments of frustration, discouragement, confusion, with advice and lessons learned from times he walked through similar experiences, by always making sure I knew that he supported me and wanted to do what he could do to help, and always with a mentor and shepherd's heart. And so that's how many of us in this room knew Tom. As someone who cares deeply, as someone who was always giving, as someone who regularly looked out for the needs of others, and as someone who was always offering some form of support, because that's what a mentor does. You know, I used to wish that in our mentor sessions, Tom would stick to the topics I came with. But now, if I'm honest, I never would have gotten to hear the wealth of knowledge and wisdom that he ultimately offered in so many other areas of my life if we had only talked about the things that I wanted to talk about. And maybe that's one of the things that made Tom a good mentor. His ability to share and impart wisdom in so many different areas of life. whether the mentee was expecting it or not. Maybe at times, or maybe frequently, offering mentorship the mentee didn't even know he or she needed. And I'm confident that was true in my relationship with Tom. Some of the greatest lessons learned in life are the ones that are least expected. So I'm grateful to have had the privilege of sitting with Tom for dozens, if not hundreds of hours over coffee. What I'd give to be able to sit down with him one more time. Take in the wisdom and advice, even if it wasn't about my specific questions, but about different and unexpected things. So, to the mentees here today, take it in. Enjoy it, even when or especially when it's unexpected. And to the mentors here today, offer everything you have, even when it might not be exactly what your mentees are expecting. And to all of us who loved and cared for Tom Osborn with a deep affection, may we learn from his mentorship. May we continue growing from the legacy he left behind. And may we celebrate the reality that Tom is now with Jesus, most likely mentoring other saints, by telling stories, sharing thoughts and perspectives, and showing a deep love and care in a way that only Tom can. And so, Tom, thank you for the countless hours of mentorship. I'm a better person, a better pastor, and a better friend because of you. And yes, I'm also a better husband and father because of you. You are loved and missed.
Almost done. I will not be your dad and go on and on and on like Kelly, like you said. It was important to the family, though, especially to Karen, that we share a piece of their life that I get to share today as we wrap things up. Once you get past all the Thomisms out there, things like, if we disagree, why does that make me wrong? It's a good one. Or no matter how many times you cut it, it will never get longer. That was another one of his favorite. You guys had to think about that one a little bit. Tom had an immense amount of wisdom. It was in 2006, as Joseph mentioned, that toward the end of 2006, that I met Tom. He had just been let go from his position as lead pastor under some incredibly hurtful circumstances that left both him and Karen deeply wounded. His daughter Kelly had been attending our youth group, so Tom and Karen thought, well, we'll just go to her church for a little bit. It turned out to be a divinely orchestrated day for them to walk through our doors. On that exact Sunday, I, along with one of our elders, had gone to visit a nearby hurting church whose pastor had stepped down for health reasons, and they were having to close their doors. We went to invite the remaining members to join us, promising them that our church would use their donations to help support their wounded pastor financially for a season. Tom and Karen were sitting in our sanctuary for the first time, listening to our elders explain this rescue mission to our church and telling them what was going on. The following week, Tom and I sat down for coffee, and with tears in his eyes, he told me his story and how deeply it warmed his heart to hear of a church offering to take care of a broken pastor, the exact opposite of what had happened to him. God used that moment to breathe hope back into a bruised and broken soul. I knew that pain firsthand because I'd walked a similar road years before. I knew what it felt like to have your passion to teach the gospel reduced to a smoldering wick. And I knew how it felt to have someone else come and gather around you and help you rekindle that fire. So it wasn't long before Tom and I were talking about him getting back in the pulpit and teaching. and rebuilding that confidence into what became eventually a part-time position with the church, as well as serving as an elder for over 15 years. You see, you can take the job away from a pastor, but you can't take the call away from the pastor. And you can't take the heart of a pastor out of his soul. You just can't do it. This began what Karen called Tom's second life. In those early days of healing, Tom's immediate dilemma was simply the heavy burden of providing for his family. But Tom possessed this incredible work ethic and a deep sense of personal responsibility. I'll never forget him looking at me one day over coffee as we were just discussing, what are you going to do next? He says, Dave, there are 24 hours in a day. I need 8 of them for sleep. That gives me 16 hours a day to provide for my family. And he did exactly what he needed to do. That grit began a beautiful transformative chapter for Tom as he learned the joy and satisfaction of bivocationally serving, stepping out of the traditional church walls and into the world with his giftings. Eventually, those long days led to the Pike Place Market, working alongside his brother. And it was right there amidst the shouting vendors and the rows of produce and the rushing crowds that Tom Osborn fully came alive in his calling. He became the pastor of the market. He found that his faith made the most sense on the other 6 days of the week, not just Sunday. Right where life was messy and people were hurting, he performed their weddings. He went to their memorial services. He supported them, and he became the ear of compassion and the voice of Christ-like wisdom to so many of the broken and hurting in the market. And it is a very gray area, right? He would go hand out samples of amazing fruit to tourists, but what he was really doing was he was handing out little bits of grace. Tom often told me that he felt like he truly got to minister and to be like Jesus with skin on at the market way more than he ever did working inside of a church building. He took the pastor's heart out of the ivory tower and out into the world and lived exactly like Jesus lived amongst the hurting. And with a lot of words, he did that. Tom and I served together off and on and as a part of this church for the last 20 years. He served part-time as our small groups pastor. He was associate pastor. He kept telling people, I'm Dave's assistant. We go to meetings, I'm Dave's assistant. I'm going, what? Okay, he's Dave's assistant today. He kind of says, don't set your salary too, Tom. He was a core part of our teaching team up until the day he died. His sermons were unmistakable. There was always a brief opening, and then without a fail, but first, let's pray. Followed by a well-thought-out unpacking of the scripture, 3 points, as he was taught to do, and a couple of Warren Wiersbe quotes to drive the point home every time he taught. And we loved it. We always used to joke that the church, we did not have any rigid traditions, but save for one. There was one tradition that we have. And then Tom set that tradition. He always taught the first Sunday of every year because I wanted a break and he was handy. And even when I retired, Joseph says, do I have to have him preach the first Sunday? I said, yeah. I said, you can try, but he's going to be there and you might as well let him do it. Tom and I often talked about the fact that you can teach a person how to do a lot of ministry tasks, but you cannot manufacture the pastor's heart. It is a spiritual gift that is both a blessing and a curse because, to be honest with you, you simply can't turn it off. You're hardwired to know the lonely visitor that everyone else walks past. You notice when others don't, and you sense what others don't sense. You notice the things that others don't notice, and you sense what others don't sense. Having a pastor's heart is one reason he loved being the chaplain for the city of Redmond. When tragedy struck and a family received the worst news of their life, I guarantee you, he was exactly the guy you wanted with you at the residence of that loved one, delivering the news. Tom came to the Lord when he was 17 years old, navigating that early loss of his father. And for over 50 years, despite the hurts of life and the brokenness of religious institutions, Tom stayed faithful. He chose to believe that an authentic community of faith is a place where your mess should be welcome and Jesus meets you for healing to restore a shattered heart. Tom loved the story of the thief on the cross from Luke 23. There were 2 criminals. If you don't know the story, there were 2 criminals, one on either side of Jesus when he was crucified. One criminal hurled insults at Jesus, it says in Luke chapter 23, and the other said to him, "Don't you fear God since you are under the same sentence? We are punished justly because of we're getting exactly what our deeds deserve. But this man, the man in the middle, he did nothing wrong." And then the man turns to Jesus and he says, "Remember me when you come into your kingdom." And Jesus simply says, "Today, you will be with me in paradise." The famous Scottish preacher Alistair Begg describes what it must have been like for that thief to arrive at the pearly gates of heaven, and an angel begins to give him the entrance exam. Can you imagine what that must have been like? The angel says, "Excuse me, sir, but by what basis are you here?" The thief says, I really don't know." "What do you mean you don't know? Have you been justified by faith?" I don't even know what justified by faith means." Well, do you understand the doctrine of Trinity?" I don't know what the Trinity is. I've never heard of it." Well, the angel runs over to St. Peter in a panic, and he says, "We've got a guy down here. He doesn't know anything. He's a total mess, and he's trying to get in." And St. Peter looks at him, "On what basis is he here?" So they go back to the man together, and he says, "Look, sir, we have to have an answer. This is the rule. On what basis are you here?" And the man looks at them and simply says, "I don't know. All I know is the man on the middle cross said that I could come." The man on the middle cross said he could come. And that is what drew Tom to the story. It wasn't about a perfect track record, a flawless resume, or the perfect theology. It was entirely about the free, radical grace of Jesus Christ, the man on the middle cross. It is his gift of forgiveness and grace that are available 24/7 to all who will call on his name. Do not miss that last sentence. It may just be the real reason that you are here today. Tom would want Jesus and the message of salvation to all mankind to be the absolute centerpiece of today, because it was a centerpiece of his life. It makes everything else we've talked about today make sense. It is because of Jesus, the man on the middle cross, that all is well with Tom today, my friends. All is well with Tom. So as we conclude, we invite you to watch a brief reflection of Tom's life and to listen to one of his favorite songs by an artist named Rhett Walker. And guess what it's entitled? The Man on the Middle Cross. And then Karen has a word for us.
I heard the preacher talking about 3 wooden crosses upon a hill for everyone to see. 2 sinners on the outside couldn't save themselves if they tried. All I could think is, man, that sounds like me. I've been the one on the left, full of guilt and regret, long gone on the wrong side of living. I've been the one on the right, always looking for a fight, thinking I can never be forgiven. I'm standing here today overwhelmed by grace, 'cause I know who paid my cost. Thank God for the man on the middle cross. He didn't have to do it, but for me he went through it. A love like that I'll never understand. Lord knows I don't deserve it, and I know I couldn't earn it, but mercy rained down on this desperate man. I've been the one on the left, full of guilt and regret, long gone on the wrong side of living. I've been the one on the right, always looking for a fight, thinking I can never be forgiven. I'm standing here today overwhelmed by grace, 'cause I know who paid my cost. Thank God for the man on the middle cross. cross is where he went, oh, but that ain't where he stayed. He brought me back to life when he rose up out of that grave. Someday I'll stand before him and I'll see Jesus face to face. I'll worship and adore him for a life forever changed. I've been the one on the left full of guilt and regret, long gone on the wrong side of living. I've been the one on the right, always looking for a fight, thinking I can never be forgiven. I'm standing here today overwhelmed by grace, 'cause I know who paid my cost. Thank God for the man on the middle cross. Thank God for the man on the middle cross.
I hope the words of that song spoke to you. It was one of Tom's favorite songs. There's a line in the song that says, "A life forever changed by the man in the middle cross." Everyone he met, he wanted to know that that was their reality as well. I wanted to get on and say thank you. Thank you so much from myself, from my kids, and my family, to all the friends, neighbors, families that reached out to us via cards, Facebook, flowers that were sent, people that came to visit. We were so grateful that you all reached out and showed love to our family in such a difficult time. Thank you. Tom would have been so blessed by all the stories and all the reminders of the fun sayings that he said. I could just see the tears welling up in his eyes on how special he would have felt. Thank you from the bottom of our heart.
Let's pray. Father, thank you for the morning of memories, for this day that we've come together to honor, and yet we know that that legacy will continue for years to come. And Father, I pray that we would all be able to take what we've learned from Tom's life and be able to apply it and to use it. May he be an encouragement to us. Thank you so much for his example. And Father, I pray now that you would give the family this extraordinary gift from your Holy Spirit of comfort and peace, knowing that they have honored him well. And Father, now that as you will guide them and lead them through your Spirit through the rest of their days. And Father, we all look forward to reuniting someday as we all relocate. Thank you for your son, Jesus, and for the message and forgiveness that he offers. In Jesus' name, amen.